welcome to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 203, and today's date is October 31st, 2013. And the title of this episode is The Economic Recovery Has Now Been Exposed as Nothing But Propaganda. Because what do we know? We know during this past summer, President Obama, Draghi, President of France, and many other countries in the Eurozone, Merkel, were all out there telling us that the problems have gone away. They are on their road to recovery. Everything is looking fantastic. But what we are seeing now is absolutely the opposite of what they were telling us. And I reported that this was propaganda, because they are looking and they are doing their best to make every single person believe that housing is getting better, unemployment is getting better, retail is getting better, the economy is getting better, there is no inflation, everything is fine. Just look at the stock market, you'll be okay. And they always do this right before the major collapse. They make everyone believe that things are going fantastically. But what we can see is right through what they are doing. And we are going to go through that during this report. But let's get into the economic collapse news. We are seeing in Greece right now that they are looking to implement a new property tax. Why are they doing this? Because the government has no money. You know what they have? They have lots and lots of debt. And that's all they have. They have no revenue to support this. So guess what happens when a country is trying to survive? They implement more taxes. That's all they do. We need more taxes. We need more taxes. We don't care who's working. Wait, we don't have enough people working? Let's get more taxes on top of those people who are working. And you see this happening in Greece. You see it in Cyprus. You see it in Portugal, Italy, France, Germany. You see it all over the place. And you definitely see it in the U.S. because everything that you hear is the government coming out saying, what other taxes, what other ways can we create revenue for the government? They were looking for the Obamacare tax, that is the penalty on the health insurance. They were looking for the online sales tax. They're looking for taxes on Wall Street for every trade that you do. This is what countries do during the end game. They try to raise as much revenue as they possibly can because they can't support the government from what is coming in, because the unemployment is way too high. There is not enough people working to support the debt, and this is what we are seeing right now. And what else do? They also cut major benefits. I mean, in Greece, they are cutting state benefits and public workforce. What are we seeing here in the U.S.? Well, we see the same thing. They're cutting EBT. They're cutting other programs. Everything that has to do with inside the country, they cut. But in the United States, they continually send billions and billions of dollars out to other countries for aid, especially in the Middle East. Now, we understand that Cyprus is still under capital controls. And the reason why they still have capital controls is because they're afraid that everyone is going to run to the bank and take their money out. So they've told everyone that they are going to remove the capital controls in 2014. And what is happening is the IMF and the central bankers are out there saying, listen, before you remove these capital controls, the government needs to guarantee all bank deposits, everything. And they need to do this to urge people to keep their money in the bank. They have to make people feel like they are safe. They did this during the Great Depression in the U.S., and this is how the FDIC came about, because they had to reestablish confidence in the banking system. And you see exactly the same thing happening in Cyprus right now. They are urging the government to put guarantees on this, because if they remove the capital controls in 2014 without guarantees, guess what's going to happen? I would do it. I don't know about you. I would run to that bank as fast as I possibly can, push people out of the way to get my money, because you know that everyone will be doing the same exact thing. Now, here in the U.S., Consumer Comfort Index tumbles to the lowest since October 2012. And if U.S. consumers were miraculously supposed to regain all their confidence when the government reopened, guess what? It didn't. No one is confident anymore, and it's falling because people are starting to realize and feel and have a gut feeling that something is off, something is wrong. And we are seeing this because a lot of people are being laid off. And one thing about people being laid off, everyone pretty much keeps it a secret. They don't go around telling people, oh, my husband just lost a job, my wife just lost a job. They continually go about their business. They continually go about their lives like nothing has changed. Sometimes you don't see people for a while. They hide in their homes. They don't come out. They don't speak to friends. But most people do not spread this type of news around. So you really don't know who has been laid off, who hasn't, until it's too late and you see all of a sudden one day they are moving out of their house for no reason that you know of, and that's how it usually occurs. So all of these people right now who are unemployed or underemployed, their confidence in the system, their comfort level is completely in a decline, and this will not improve because the economy is declining. Now, we understand that the Eurozone area was telling us that things are fantastic, it's all getting better. Look, our unemployment in the Eurozone has come down to 12%. But during the summer, we saw countries reaching new all-time highs. Greece was reaching all-time new highs. Spain was. Germany's unemployment was ticking up, and they were trying to make us believe that everything was fine, and it really didn't make sense. It went from 12.1% down to 12%. Now the truth comes out. What happened was the unemployment rate is actually going up. What happened was they had to revise the numbers in August. It always seems like they always go back and revise. They give you the fake numbers first. They wait like a month or two, and they go back and they say, oh, let's just fix this right now. No one's really paying attention. But in August, they told us it was 12%. Now it turns out that there was a new record high of about 73,000 people that were unemployed, and now the unemployment numbers tick up to 12.2%. So actually, the unemployment is going up, just like we suspected, just like we talked about back in August, in September, when I continually report on the decline of the economy. This is the world economy. It is declining. It makes no sense when you look at the corporate media. It makes no sense when the government officials come out and tell you that everything is fine. It makes no sense that things are okay. And if you really look at it, the politicians back then, they were proclaiming that a victory, that they're coming out of the recession. The stocks were at record highs. Bond risk is a multi-year lows, but unemployment were going up. Youth unemployment was hitting all-time record highs. People in the Eurozone, the young people in the Eurozone under 25, hit 24.1%. Spain was hitting 56.5%. Greece was hitting 57.3%. And while all this was going on, the government officials were out there saying, we've done it. We made it out of this recession, and we were recovering. And again, I've always said this in the past. It is always the opposite of what these officials say, because they want you to believe that things are okay. And we see this here in the U.S. the Fed is out there letting us know that the stock market is at all-time new highs. The Dow, the S&P, all-time new highs. It's fantastic. I see they pushed gold back down again. Like I said, for all those people that are collecting and purchasing gold as an insurance policy, do not sell it. They will not allow gold to rise at this time because this will indicate that there's something wrong with the economy. So every time it reaches a certain point, you will always see it pushed down, not by $1 or $2 or $3. It'll be pushed down by 20, 25, 30, 50 dollars per ounce, and we are seeing this happen again. But the Fed is out there letting us know that there's absolutely no inflation. And of course, these numbers are manipulated. They took out energy, they took out food, all the things that you purchase on a daily basis. And what are we seeing here? We're seeing McDonald's dollar menu is now becoming the $1 to $5 menu. So they are increasing the dollar menu to include other items because what is happening, they are going to slowly transition those dollar items to $2 and then slowly transition those to $5 because it things are getting expensive, and we are definitely seeing this happen all over the place. Amazon has raised their minimum order size that is required for free shipping from 25 to 35. Now, why would they do that? Again, because things are becoming more expensive. We also see natural gas heat going up by 13%. Again, energy is rising. We can see fuel prices rising. What else are we seeing? We're seeing chocolate has gone up by 45% since 2007. We are also seeing products being shrunk down. We're seeing the size of things being reduced, but they're selling it at the same price. So what does this tell you? The manufacturers do not want you to see that prices are going up, so instead they are tricking the consumer with the same price, but they are reducing the amount of items that are in a package. I've seen this with tissues. I've seen this with ice cream. People have written in and they've seen this with crackers. And we are seeing this in many different products where things are shrinking down. And if you go to the x22report.com site, I have an inflation deflation, and I show ice cream. It's funny, they keep the cover the same size, but it tapers into the bottom, and it's no longer a half gallon anymore. But guess what? They try to keep the price the same so no one really notices, except for those people who actually shop and look at the sizes and the prices all the time like I do. You definitely notice it. Okay. Now, Steve Lieb is out there. He's a money manager, and he's saying China is preparing to declare financial war against the U.S. And he goes on to say that people don't completely understand this because the stock market is on the move. It's rising. It's at all-time new highs. But the reality is that the U.S. is in great deal of danger. He says there is a black swan out there, and it's going to rear its ugly head very soon. And the Fed's balance sheet right now is close to $4 trillion. And when the Chinese unleash that war on the dollar, it will force the Fed to step in and buy even more bonds. And this will only make the situation worse. And I've been saying this in my other reports where I said during this fall, winter, it might even go into January, we will see a first part of the collapse, a small collapse, which will allow the Fed then to print more money or create more money, however you want to say it, because I know they're not really printing dollars, they're pushing numbers on a computer. So they're going to use an event of some sort. Don't know exactly what it's going to be. I have some ideas, I've mentioned them before, where the central bankers need to do many different things. They need to get the war started out in Iran, in Syria. They need to blame the collapse on another country. So this would be the perfect time to do this. They really thought they had this whole entire false flag event completely done with the Syrian chemical attack, but that fell through, and now they are building up to the next event. And this event will happen within a specified time unless something major changes. But I believe that there is an event coming, and there will be some type of attack within the U.S. It will be a multi-pronged type of attack where it will be coupled with a cyber, could be nuclear, could be bio, could be chemical, and it will happen in many different parts of the country. And this will allow the Fed to step in and say, since this just happened, the economy now is slowing and declining. The government wants the Fed to come in to help out. The Fed will say, well, what we can do is we can, print money, because what else can they do? That's pretty much the only thing they can do. So they will increase QE. And what is the real reason they're increasing? Foreign nations are selling treasury bonds. If there's a seller, somebody needs to buy them. The housing market completely imploding, a lot of foreclosures on the bank books. So what does the Fed have to do? They have to increase the amount of money to purchase the toxic real estate, and this would be the real reason why this is happening. And we can see we are headed in that direction, and we understand that we are headed in that direction because the economy is starting to decline. We see in the Eurozone, in Europe, things are getting much, much worse. And back in 1929, if we go all the way back there, during the Roaring Twenties, we saw what happened in Germany with hyperinflation. Entire Europe was in a recession. The United States, no one realized anything, and they thought everything was fantastic. The market reaching all-time new highs. The Dow was at 400 points or so, and everything was going perfectly. And Europe was in big trouble. We are seeing the exact same play, that the same exact scenario going on right now. There is absolutely, really, not much of a difference if you compare the two. And we are seeing the Dow, the S&P, all-time new highs. Europe, as the Eurozone leaders say, they're going back into the recession. Things are getting worse, but they never came out of the recession. And we see this happening. Countries in double-digit unemployment, in debt up to their eyeballs. It is getting worse, 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 not better. And soon, that tidal wave of debt, that tidal wave of unemployment is going to hit here in the U.S., and everything is going to come crumbling down, and there will be nothing to stop it. And the only thing central bankers know what to do in this situation is to start a war, to take all eyes off of them as the blame, as them being the cause of it, to shift it towards another country, and to start the whole war up where they benefit from the entire war. And we can see that this is totally building up to that point. And we see many of the rights of the people being removed because they understand when this whole entire system comes down, they want to reset it. They want to start over, but they want to start over without the Constitution. And this is why we're seeing so many of these laws that I've talked about in previous reports. And recently, in New York, they have a stop and frisk policy, and a Supreme Court judge ruled it unconstitutional, and the New York brought it to the appeals court, and it just so happens that the U.S. Federal Appeals Court has blocked a previous ruling against New York City's stop and frisk policy. The judge who made the ruling was removed from the case, and now they are taking that and giving it to another judge at random because of some type of problem with the judge. And I don't understand how this is a problem. This completely violates the Fourth Amendment. Stopping someone on the street and frisking them for no reason violates the Fourth Amendment. It's like someone just, it's almost like a police officer just opening your door, walking in, going through your drawers, going through your closets without a search warrant, without probable cause, without a search warrant. It is the same exact thing, and that's why the Fourth Amendment was put there, so this couldn't happen. But you can see what is happening. Now, my question is, do you think the NSA had something on this judge and on the appeal court to make them rule in this way? Okay, now the TSA is out there saying that 75% of domestic travelers a flight risk. And to combat this problem, those people who have passports are the ones that are lumped into the 75%. You people are a problem and a flight risk. And to combat this problem, what are they doing? Well, they're going to use private databases, which include car registration and employment information. And they're going to get information, of course, from the DMV. And from all this information, they're going to determine if you're on the list or off of the list. So you can see that we are in this police state. This has nothing to do with finding terrorists. It is here to keep an eye on the American people and to put them into groups and to put them on the list. How do you get off of this list? Well, you can't, because you don't know if you're on or off, and there's no way of telling. So this is what they're ending up doing right now. And they're doing it because when the collapse comes, they will need to go and collect those people who are a threat to the government. Okay, now yesterday I reported on that Russia is placing missiles on the Poland, in the Belarus region, along that whole entire NATO border where Poland is. Now, the U.S. wants Poland to place mid-range and long-range missiles on its border. And they're saying they want them to put these missiles on their border just in case something is launched from the Middle East, namely Iran, which is predicted to have the capabilities to launch a intercontinental ballistic missile. And they're looking to beef that area up, and it's just very interesting that Russia is placing missiles along that border, and now the U.S. wants missiles on that border. So what you can see is happening is a lot of these countries are moving their military assets because they all understand what is about to happen here, and that is World War III. China right now is saying to Japan that this is a very dangerous provocation, and what Japan did was they were shadowing the Chinese military exercises in the Western Pacific. They are provoking, they are flexing their muscles, and you can see right now that Japan is no longer a pacifist nation. They are turning into a nation where they will declare war and go about attacking someone if they need to, and they are trying to change Article 9 in their constitution so they no longer have to be a pacifist nation. Now, China is retaliating against the U.S. naval presence when the U.S. Sails its ships into the Pacific region right off the coast of China. So now China decided to take their naval ships and send them across the Pacific to Hawaii. And I guess right now what this is saying is that China appears to feel that its naval buildup has progressed sufficiently to allow it to retaliate against the U.S. naval presence in the East China Sea by sending surveillance ships to Hawaiian waters. And China's military brass is the regular incursions by U.S. ships across the so-called First Island chain, and China has built up an arsenal meant to keep U.S. carrier groups at a distance. And as China's naval buildups continues apace, the Western Pacific will begin to look more like a chessboard rather than wide open field into which the U.S. can position its fleet at will. And we understand that the U.S. has just sent over the destroyer, which is a stealth destroyer, into the Pacific region. We understand that the U.S. has bases which is encircling China right now, and we can see that all military assets are being pre-positioned for what is about to happen. And we understand, and all these nations understand also, that World War III is coming because they understand what these central bankers do. They are going to carry on, go down kicking and screaming, and they will start World War III if they do not get their way. And right now, They are definitely losing control around the world. The U.S. dollar is continually being maintained by military force, but it is all completely falling apart. You have to understand the U.S. government, central bankers, went into these countries, Libya, Lebanon, Iraq, Yemen, and they threw out the governments there and they put in their puppet regimes, the U.S. government puppet regime, to set up private central western banks to put their natural resources back on the U.S. dollar. And what do we see in Libya right now? Well, in Libya, they are losing control. Iraq, they are losing control. Right now, foreign governments are responding by evacuating citizens in their embassies. And what is happening is Libya and the militants there are taking over the government. And right now, the U.S. is really losing their footing in this area. Saudi Arabia is looking to make deals with Russia and China now because they understand the U.S. dollar is going to collapse. We see this in Egypt. They are making deals with Putin right now, and Putin is looking to use their naval base in the Mediterranean, and this is happening all across the Mideast right now. And, they really thought they had it with Syria. They thought the false flag chemical attack was going to do it, but the American people and the Congress were not into going to war at all, and what happened was they needed a way to get out of this. So John Kerry blurted out, all they had to do is get rid of their chemical weapons. Putin heard this, they stepped in, and here we are today. And Syria now is met their deadline, and all declared equipment and sites for producing chemical weapons are rendered unusable, and they have met the deadline, and now they will begin destroying the chemical weapons. Now, Israel and Saudi Arabia this is their last-ditch effort to get a war started. So Israel flew into Syria and bombed a base where they kept strategic missiles from Russia. And the reason why they did this, because they believed that Syria had advanced missile systems there, and these were missiles from Russia. But let me ask everyone, what country is allowed to fly into another country's airspace and just bomb a military base without any reaction from that country? So, you people in England that are listening, the people in Spain, Australia, Canada, U.S., let me ask you this. If another country flew into your country, bombed a military base, what do you think would happen? That would kick off a war. I mean, we saw it in World War II. All of a sudden, the Japanese just flew in and bombed a military base, and what happened? The U.S. went to war. Israel flies into Syria, bombs a base, and nothing. Because Syria understands that Israel is trying to provoke them into attacking. Why? Because they want to get the war started. That is why. And we understand right now, Israel and Saudi Arabia and the central bankers are making plans for Iran. And when I say this, is that they've been giving us the propaganda now that Iran is very close to making a nuclear weapon. And right now, there are pretty much two scenarios that I see. Either Israel is going to fly in and attack Iran, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think what's going to happen is they're going to try to provoke Iran into doing something like they did with Syria. But that will not work because Iran has not started a war in over 200 years, so they're not going to respond to this. So what I think the next course of action is going to be, because Israel, Saudi Arabia, they want the United States to go into Iran and start the war. they will use, and they are planning on this now, a false flag event in the U.S. They will use a cyber attack. They will use some type of nuclear weapon, maybe chemical, biological, and this will be a false flag event like we saw during 9/11, but much worse, because they saw that the American people in Congress do not care to go to war. And if the event does not happen on American soil, people will not even bat an eye about going to war over there in Iran. So what they're going to do is they're going to hold a false flag event here in the States. And this is what is about to happen. We also see that the United States is losing a cyber war, and it will take a cyber Pearl Harbor for the country to take steps necessary to protect critical computer systems. Right now, McConnell, in an interview after his appearance, said Iranian hackers have probably infiltrated networks of a major bank during cyber attacks that started in January 2012. They've probably infiltrated the systems and already placed some type of virus or malware into the system to be called upon whenever they want. And he said that the economic sanctions are hurting them and hurting them badly, and Iran is looking for options to give them the ability to punch back in a big way. He said the hackers were looking for vulnerabilities, and they've been doing this all throughout the year of 2012, and they probably found one and put something in place so they can call upon it at any time. Now, we all understand it's not Iran doing this. We all understand what is about to happen, and this is why I was talking about the false flag. They are planning this. They understand what they need to do. And this is not just going to happen in the U.S. This is going to happen throughout Europe, the U.K., and even Canada right now is warning banks and insurance companies they need to beef up protection against advanced cyber intrusions from a growing list of actors, which they mean countries. The increasing frequency and sophistication of recent cyber attacks have resulted in an elevated risk profile for many organizations around the world and in Canada. So we can see that all of these countries are going to be involved in this because they really want to get this war started and make it a global war. Now, I saw this article and I just was thinking that since they're trying to get this war started, and most likely in the end it will probably go nuclear somehow, some way. And what I noticed is that they set up a doomsday vault. And what I mean by this in Norway, they created back in 2006 a doomsday vault which houses about 4.5 million varieties of seeds from nearly every country on the globe. And the person who helped fund this was Norway's government, but the main funding came from Microsoft, Bill Gates. And these seeds are kept frozen, and the Doomsday Vault can withstand nuclear explosions. That's how protected they are. And we can see that something is about to happen. They understand this, and central bankers have been planning this for many, many years. This is not just something that happened in 2008. This is not something that happened, in 1960. This is going far, far back. And when I was looking through different things, I found this article about Obama cutting the military by purging generals, and we see this going on right now. But this U.S. Army General Paul Vallely, hopefully I pronounce his name right, an outspoken critic of Obama, claims it is part of Obama's strategy to reduce the standing of the United States worldwide. And what he goes on to say is Obama is intentionally weakening and gutting our military, Pentagon, and reducing us as a superpower. And anyone in the ranks who disagrees or speaks out is being purged. And we're actually seeing that. We are seeing the Army being reduced. We see major generals being let go. And what this goes on to say is the United Nations Arms Trade Treaty and the 1961 U.S. State Department Memorandum 7277, Freedom from War, the United States Program for General and Complete Disarmament. This armament program is essentially a plan to engineer a United Nations peace force that would enforce the peace as the disarmament process proceeds, and that a gradual build down of police and military forces is outlined, which leaves only NATO as the world army. It is in play right now, and we are currently at the tail end phase 2 of the three-phase plan of the UN-generated scheme of disarming the world in a prelude to installing a one-world socialistic government. The United States Constitution has already been replaced on paper by the Charter of the United Nations under the United Nations Treaty and the UN Participation Act. Our nation is no longer operating under the Constitution, and we see that. We have the NDAA, we have the Patriot Act, we have the NSA. All these rights that are so simple that we say they're unconstitutional are not being removed from the books. And we see this over and over and over. So let me go back to this. They are no longer under the Constitution as the supreme law of the land, but in fact is currently operating under the Charter of the United Nations. The government knows you will not approve of this. And the people will not approve of this. Even though it's on paper, the people will say, no way, you're not getting rid of the Constitution. Which is why they want to take away your firearms. Title 22 U.S.C. 2551 is the Congressional Statement of Purpose and defines the government's meaning of disarmament. It calls for the elimination of our armed forces and the elimination of weapons of all kinds. That means your personal, citizen-owned conventional firearms used for hunting and self-defense will no longer be yours. From Title V, Section 6.1 of the PL 101-216, as defined in this Act, the terms arms control and disarmament mean the identification, verification, inspection, limitation, control, reduction, or elimination of armed forces and armaments of all kinds under international agreement to establish an effective system of international control. In Stage 1 of the program, we are to reduce our armed forces to 2.1 million men and transfer one half of them to be merged with Russia and China. In Stage 2, the remaining one half of our armed forces is then turned over to the Security Council of the United Nations. The world's smaller nations turn 100% of their armies over to the same Undersecretary of the Security Council in Stage 2. Former President George H.W. Bush and Admiral William J. Crowe referred to this process as being in transition. The ultimate goal to be reached in Stage 3 of disarmament is to proceed to a point where no state nation would have the military power to challenge the progressively strengthened UN peace force. We can see what is happening right now. This is why John Kerry has signed the UN Arms Treaty. This is why the President has created all the executive orders to support the gun bills and the UN Arms Treaty. Even when the war starts, World War III, these central bankers are looking to reset the system the way they want. They are already doing it. And after the war, the American people will be tired. They'll be exhausted from it. the armed forces will be pretty much wiped out, and at that time, they would have the ability to push this forward. And they are trying to get everything into place. We talked about this many, many times with Common Core, re educating our children to think in a different way. They are trying to do this and set everything into place right now. Listen, everyone, thank you very much for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.